Well, Nancy, today we have our guest back, and Barbara.
Yes, we do.
As we said, we'd be coming back on one of our last podcasts.
Yes.
And today, Barbara is going to educate us in her world again of the world of emotional intelligence from the eyes of a teenager.
I agree.
So, Barbara, on your expertise, there's a lot of emotions in school, isn't there, right now?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the emotions that you see, because we all know what emotions are. Anger, all the...
Yeah.
But right now, what would you classify right now in school as what's the top emotion that you're seeing right now with your classmates, with the teachers, all that? What emotion would you say, man, that's definitely obvious?
Mine would be either like happiness or just frustration.
Okay, happiness and frustration. Okay, wow, that's at both ends of the spectrum. So let's take happiness. Let's get some examples of happiness that you see.
Good
Well,
grades.
Grades. People like their grades?
Yeah.
And again, we know you got great grades,
I know.
but I'm talking about your classmates
Yeah.
and people around you.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of positivity, happiness around grades right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, help me understand. Why is that?
Well, a lot of people are like, they're getting the work done, and the teachers help them a lot with if they're in trouble and such.
Mm-hmm. So you're in a really good school environment to where there's a lot of positivity. A lot of people want to help each other in teamwork.
Yeah, but it is the first year of like high school and second semester.
So it's your first year of high school and the second semester.
Mm-hmm.
And that you're experiencing a lot of positivity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And frustration.
Now we're going to go to the other end of the continuum from the eyes of a teenager. Let's talk about frustration.
Well, some students, they like mess around in class.
Okay.
And then they also receive like some sort of bad grades, but they don't think that's like their fault necessarily.
So that we would label some victimization happening there.
Yeah.
So it's and of course we threw a big word at you.
Yeah.
What victimization is when we blame we're a victim and it's everybody else's fault that things happen to us.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of people around you blaming other people.
Yeah.
Not taking personal responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're talking about emotions and when you say frustration, what emotion do you think frustration is?
Anger.
Anger. Very good. So there's some display of anger happening out of frustration.
Yes.
Okay. So happiness, we would see there's a tremendous amount of joy.
Yeah. Like people talking to their friends.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that.
And especially right now, it's closer to Thanksgiving right now.
Yeah.
So everybody's looking forward to
The food.
So what happens when you experience the frustration in the class, talking about the environment of the class? So you're talking about happiness and frustration are the two main emotions that people access. What happens when everyone is happy, they're getting good grades, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're hit with this frustration because what you said, someone got a bad grade and didn't look at as being, what happens? Do you notice anything specifically happening, anything changing per se?
Not really, just like the person who got the bad grade, if the teacher like doesn't help them in the way that they want them to help them, they like kind of just give up on their grades and stuff like that.
So would you say, from your perspective, that happiness and frustration can actually be together side by side? Or no? Does one influence the other?
Well, it depends if you're talking about if one person can feel happiness and frustration. Or
No,
if
I'm talking about it can a whole class feel happiness Have you noticed if a whole class feels happiness and all of a sudden, boom, there's one person that feels frustration, do you notice the changing of the class, or does the whole class continue to feel happiness?
Well, their like happiness level just kind of drops like a tiny bit though, and then there's like I said, the person might give up, yell or something like that.
So then what? So then what happens? What happens to that? Do you guys just go into ignoring that, or do you try to bring the frustrated person to happiness?
Ignore.
Okay.
So, from your perspective, when somebody comes at you, we're going back to emotional intelligence. When somebody comes at you angry, what is your personal response?
Trying to figure out what like made them angry.
Yeah, very good. So you'll stay in it and listen to the person and not run.
Yes.
Okay. So keep on going. So you're gonna show me what that looks like. If I come up to you angry, how are you gonna find that out?
Ask you what's wrong,
Okay.
who made you angry,
Okay.
and then what did they do, if it was a person.
Okay. So, and you're gonna actually what you're doing there is you're willing to have empathy and have understanding for that person. You're not just going to say, you're just not going to accept they're just angry. You know there's an origin why they're angry. They're just not a bad person.
Yeah.
Okay. So what has been your experience as you've done that? In other words,
Just-
what happens? So you said, okay, you find out. So how does that relationship continue to go? I mean, what happens then after you do that? What do you experience from the other person?
That like after they like kind of feel a little bit better because they actually talked to somebody and they know that they listened, that like I listened to them.
So you have an approach. You're first to understand, and you're first to find out what's wrong.
Yeah.
Before you start throwing arrows or respond to negativity.
Yeah.
What other situations that you encounter negative feelings, somebody's scared, what do you do there if you encounter fear?
Probably try to comfort them. You know, be by their side.
I'm going to give you a really trick one here. Let's see how good
Oh
you are.
no.
Here comes a real good one. Have you ever experienced the emotion shame? Somebody.
Like from myself or from somebody else?
Well, let's go with somebody else. See if you've been identified as somebody's feeling shameful.
Yeah.
Okay, give me.
Some girls like they have shame over their body.
Very good. So how do you?
Yeah. How do you know? How do you read that somebody has shame without them telling you that?
Without them actually telling me that? Well, I see like how people actually like react to hurt them, you know, talk to them and such. So I'm probably, and if they talk in a mean way, they're most likely gonna have body shame over because that person said something bad about their body, so they're gonna body shamed.
So how do you act? How do you respond to someone who has shame? How do you respond to that?
Try to make them forget about why they're ashamed of their body. Try and have them be more comforted and have me to talk to about it.
So less judgmental. You wouldn't come at them judgmental. You're non-judgmental.
Yes.
So here's the thing that's on a stigma, and you know, for the most part, we look at teens as there's a high depression in teens. From your perspective, I don't know if you've ever encountered, maybe you yourself have felt depression, or have you encountered depression, and how would you see the signs of that, and how would you handle that from your perspective?
Well, I mean, I haven't actually like seen depression, but I do know if like somebody had like a traumatic experience or like they keep getting bullied about their body weight or something, they're probably going to go wound up in depression or something like that.
So how would you recognize that?
You know, they're down a lot, they don't really talk to many people, and they don't really like want to do their work because they're sad and like, yeah.
Okay. How would you help parents identify if their teenager is depressed? What are the signs that parents, because so often we as parents, that's one of the things we would like to know. What are the signs we as parents should look for in our teenagers that we could say that they're depressed?
Well, I mean, they're kind of like down, you know. They have lost their appetite,
Okay.
like decreased on how much they eat, and then they don't really want to do much with you or anyone else. So they want to get away from people as much as possible.
So they kind of isolate.
Yes.
What are other signs?
You know, they're hanging around in the room a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So have you encountered, like, what, from your perspective, what helps pull someone out of depression?
For them to have somebody to talk to, but like somebody that they're like really close to and they know that they can trust. Not just somebody that like, because if you think it from my,
Perspective?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you would just hire some therapists and I go to them. I'm not honestly gonna truly trust them because to me they're a stranger and I don't really want to talk to somebody that my mom just hired to help.
So you're saying that basically teenagers don't really want to speak to strangers about their problems. Yes. Even if that stranger has a license, because that's what therapists have, they have a license, you're saying still they don't want to, so they would feel more comfortable speaking with the parents.
Yes, because to me, I would just think that that's what they're getting, that's all they're doing is because they're getting paid. They don't
really care about you.
Yes.
They're just doing their job, and so basically, they're really not listening to you.
Yes. They're just trying to think of some way to fix it. But, like, I don't trust them because even though they have a license, to me, I just think that that's because they're getting paid and they don't want to listen, actually, like, think of a way.
Truly listen, truly hear.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, do teenagers like to have their lives fixed?
Deeply they probably do, but then if you ask them, they're probably going to be like, no. But in honesty, they do.
Deep down, they do want to have it fixed? Yeah. Okay, so so deep down, they want to have their lives fixed. Talk about, again, like, are you talking about from emotional perspective? Is that really what's lacking in the teenagers as far as having that adult they can trust or having that non-judgmental person they can trust? Is that fixing it?
It might, but it's better to have, the person that it's like somebody that they truly like trust and close to, and that's the reason like they're body shaming them and they're being judgmental. It'd be better for the teenager to hear it from them on, hey, you shouldn't be doing that to me because it hurts me, but like not going too deep into the details.
Right. That makes sense.
So let's talk about another emotion, anxiety. You see a lot of people, I know anxiety can come a lot when tests.
Yeah.
So that's an obvious anxiety.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some not obvious anxieties that you see, because again, we talked about a little bit of the shamefulness and bullying and things like that. Where have you encountered an anxiety in your friends, and how did you de-escalate that?
Honestly, I haven't seen any like anxiety
Okay.
type things. So, but if somebody did come to me with anxiety, I try to like help them with whatever is making them have anxiety.
Have you experienced anxiety yourself?
Not yet.
You don't worry about things. You know, that's another thing. Anxiety doesn't necessarily mean, it doesn't necessarily mean to be like stress per se. It can come as far as do you find yourself worrying about something or anxious about something? You've never had those kind of experiences?
Well, like not like hard, like I'm super worried about it. It's just in the back of my mind.
So you haven't really had a full-fledged anxiety.
Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly what. Not yet, at least.
And your friends and stuff that you have, they haven't either.
Not that I know of.
When you're with your friends, do you guys talk a lot about your emotions or no?
It like depends of what is happening to them, but I do understand if they don't want to talk about it. Because most teenagers, they don't want to talk about it to even anyone, not even a trusted person.
And why is that? Why do you think that is?
Because, especially if like somebody else that they trust, hurt them in some way, they wouldn't want to talk about it to anybody because they don't trust anybody anymore because of that one, because they had that one trusted person.
That hurt them.
Backstab them.
Yeah, I like the word backstab. It usually happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you get blindsided.
Yeah.
A lot of times we can deal with things that come head on, but when it comes from the back, that's the really damaging part.
Yeah.
That really breaks trust. Because you can say one thing to one person and then talk behind their back and say something totally different.
Yeah. Something like it meaning in that is more mean about it and like will destroy me, like say that was me, and then my friend talked about it in some totally different situation than I told her. Like that would hurt.
Definitely. Misrepresentation of who you are.
Yes.
Almost like malice. Yeah, that's some heavy stuff there. And that's why I can see there's a low trust level.
Yeah.
That you have to be trustworthy if somebody's going to talk to you about your feelings.
So what would you say from your perspective, what would you say would be the hardest thing today being a teenager? What would you say is the hardest thing of being a teenager in today's? Is it finding that trusted person that you can talk about?
Yeah, that would be probably the hardest.
And why is that?
Because you don't know now, you don't really want to trust anybody because, especially on the internet, because you know that it's most like there's like a higher chance of it being fake, and then there's also manipulative people, so that's probably the hardest.
Right. So it's the hardest thing of you basically. So trusting people, finding someone you can trust would be the hardest thing you would basically say.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Nancy, any other questions we have for our guests today?
No, I find it has been very enlightening. And no, I don't really.
Now, I did make one observation as we were talking. We also have the emotion of love. And when love's fake, it's not real.
Yeah.
It's what you talked about a little bit about the backsliding. There are
Stabbing.
backsliding.
Backstabbing. Yes. Yes.
But they pretend they love you.
Yeah.
So you would see there's a lot
To
of...
get, it's more like to get what they want from you.
Yeah, there's a lot of, even
Yeah.
in the adult world, what we call love when it's it's fake. It's not real. And you really don't, even when we experience an adult, there's a lot of fakeness out there right now. People to pretend to care about you. That's dangerous.
It really is, and it really shows us where we're at. And of course, like I said, Barbara is, the next generation coming up. It's really showing where we're at as a society and as a world, for instance, because Barbara, a lot of things that you talk about is what we struggle with in adulthood. And one of the main things is finding that person that you can trust to really be able to share what your feelings without being judged, or like you had talked about, the therapist that they get paid for it. So they're going to fix you based on, their perception. And it's not therapists, we have nothing against therapists. It's just saying there's a lot of adults. It's really hard to find that adult that's not going to look at you, that is just going to say, okay, they already know the solution before, it's really, we just want to have that safe place where we can talk and really share our feelings without being fixed, without saying, or judged. So that's really, it's really enlightening to seeing that that's happening. The generation coming up is already, it's kind of a sad thing.
And I think it's going to give us a spinoff for our next podcast in 2 weeks. And we're going to talk about with the fakeness out there. And
Yes.
we're going to have a podcast where we expose it. So not only teenagers, but also the adults, we can identify the fakeness,
Yes.
not the real.
Yes.
Because we talk a lot, again, we always talk about a dollar bill. And how do you know if it's a fake dollar bill? You look at a dollar bill, that's how you tell the other one's a counterfeit. Mm-hmm. So a lot of our podcasts, we talk about what is truth and honesty.
Authentic, yes.
Authentic. So what we're going to do out of our authenticness, we're going to expose the fakeness.
We're going to talk about the fakeness, yes, because we have encountered them. Boy, have we ever encountered them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what to be aware of ahead of before it gets in the situation, exactly what Bobby describes, what it feels like somebody slandering and stabbed before you get stabbed in the back.
Yes.
So, Barbie, you have given us inspiration for our next podcast in 2 weeks. So
I'm glad.
I'm sure you are. Well, it has been an honor to have you, and also from your perspective.
It has been. Yes, it has been.
OrangeRoseServices.com. Give us a jingle. Give me an email, james@orangeroseservices.com. Let us know your experience. But most of all, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.